Hey, and welcome to Dad Describes. Today we are going to be talking about the differences between the Republicans and the Democrats, or conservatives and progressives in America, and we're starting right now. Democrats believe that government is best suited and has the moral responsibility and is best equipped with knowledge to address social and societal issues that come up. So government has a responsibility to come in and solve problems and fix problems. And because it's their responsibility, this impacts every aspect of society. You'll tend to have tax policy with people on the left that has large government, because a government that has the responsibility to fix social ills needs lots of funding. So left-wing ideologies traditionally will mean large, powerful government. So the further you go left on the spectrum, you are going to see larger government that has more and more control in the daily lives of the people under that government. On the right side of the political spectrum, Republicans, conservatives, the philosophy at the core of that is that the individual is best suited to find out their own individual happiness and pursue their own solutions to problem. The individual is best suited to do this because they're experts in their own life, and they have a responsibility to do that and a freedom to do that. So you will see core conservative values be lots of personal freedom, lots of personal responsibility for one to have control over their own life. This means that they would believe in a small government that largely doesn't interfere in the lives of their people. Where most people who teach this subject mess up is they talk about a continuum between the left and right, where the farther out on the extremes that you go, that they kind of curve back in on each other. And I don't believe that that's true at all, and I'm going to tell you why. As I explained earlier, as I said, the further right you would go, you would see less and less government. Yet people who believe in the spectrum, the specter theory that curves back on itself, would tell you that fascism is on the right. But if you're familiar with the tenets of fascism, fascism relies on a very strong central government. It relies on the government taking over a lot of private industry and running a nationalistic industry. You know, like, so if you had steel mills, the government would come in and take over all of the industry and run it themselves. And that just doesn't jive with conservatism being about less government, less authority in the government, and more personal freedom. So when people talk about fascism being on the right, they're absolutely wrong. It actually belongs properly on the left. So communism and fascism, many people would diagram them as the extreme ends of the left and right, but fascism is actually on the left, and there's very little difference. You know, communism and fascism both rely on the strong power of the state to achieve their ends. So what is on the far right of the spectrum? That's quite simply each individual is kind of their own sovereign, and there's no government whatsoever, and it's anarchy and kind of chaos, every man for themselves. It doesn't end in some type of authoritarian government, because there is no government at the far end of the right. So anybody telling you that the far right is fascist just doesn't understand these simple basic concepts. The left believes in government having the moral authority to fix problems and being best suited, whereas the right believes that, again, the individual is empowered and has the responsibility to fix their own problems. Now let's apply this theory to an interesting subset in American culture, Evangelical Christians. Most people, if you talk to them, would believe that Evangelical Christians were actually on the right end of the spectrum. And to some degree, that's true. But if you take a closer look, evangelicals believe in values and morals, and if you look at American history, things like blue laws closing, the sale of alcoholic beverages, those are the evangelicals at specific periods of time using the force of government to impact political change, which is not a hallmark of right-wing idealism. It's in fact left-wing. So yes, you can have right-wing individuals that are evangelicals willing to use government to enforce moral standards. And as I said, that shifts them to the left. They may have different outcomes than traditional progressives on the left, but they're willing to use the same force of government to achieve those ends. And you have had in history progressive Republicans. In fact, the modern progressive movement probably started with Teddy Roosevelt as a Republican being basically the country's first real progressive. Also, in speaking about evangelicals, evangelicals tend to have a need, want, desire to help fix social problems by going out and tackling them. And when you tie that into Teddy Roosevelt, a lot of the movement was, hey, listen, there's a lot of poverty. Traditionally, the Christian church would go out and try to tackle issues of poverty, but they slowly shifted that from a church issue to deal with social ails. It became a government issue to deal with social ails. So at the heart of Christianity, you do have a base of people that traditionally vote right, that if there were more alignment on policy outcomes, the left could steal a bunch of evangelicals, but for one or two very major issues like the right for life. What I mean by that is there are evangelicals that will just only vote, they're single issue voters, and that happens to be on the right for life. So if you're trying to figure out your own political ideology, you do have to start and ask yourself the basic question: what do you believe in? Do you believe that government runs well, that it can run well, that it can solve your problems, that it should step in and solve your problems for you? Just remember that it can tell you how to solve those problems, and you might not like the answers. Whereas on the other hand, do you more align with, hey, I have these problems, but I'd like to fix them myself. It's my right, it's my duty, I want to seek out my own future, but hey, I may fail, and then the responsibility is going to be on me, and I've got no one to blame but myself. So are you right-wing? Are you left-wing? Do you fall somewhere in the middle? And these are big core value issues that you're going to have to figure out for yourself. And I have a whole other video talking about core values that you can check out here in the link. But before you do, feel free to hit the like button and hit subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video.